Hello everyone, John Maher here. It is Thursday, August 20th, 2026, and this is your Grass10 update on the dairy edge. Well, unfortunately, grass growth remains very low, especially in the southeast corner of the country. Carlow, Wicklow, they are sub 10 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day in terms of growth rate, which is extremely low. Then the counties like Wexford, Laois, Kildare, Kilkenny, Waterford, Meath, they are below 20 kilograms of dry matter per hectare growth. But some of those farms would allow grass in the diet now. Some. Cork, Limerick, Offaly, Tipperary, Cavan, Louth, they're kind of in around the 25, 30 kilograms of growth per hectare per day. And I suppose, if you go to, and that would allow grass in the diet as well to a degree. Other extremes then, I suppose, of the other end of the spectrum, Mayo, Sligo, Donegal, they're growing 60 to 70 kilos plus of dry matter per hectare per day. So again, it's a bit about location, and I suppose the southeast corner is struggling the most with growth. The northwest corner is growing the most, as they have been for a while. And I suppose for the record, when we're looking at for the average for the country, the average farm cover is just over 500 at 166 kilograms of dry matter per livestock unit. The average growth across all the country was 37. The demand was set at 37. The average diet of the dairy cow on pasture base was 10 kilos of grass, 5 kilos of meal, 4 kilos of silage, and the average pre-grazing yield is just above 1,000. The dry matters are all pretty close to 30 in terms of Moore Park and Carlow. Grange is mid-20s, all right, but they are very, very high, because grass tends to be high when the growth rate is low. To do a more regional look at the PBI data, I suppose put Munster and Leinster together, their average farm cover is just over 500. The average growth rate was about 26, 27 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day. And the demand of the herd was set at about 33 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day. You look at Count Ulster then, different story. Average farm cover is over 680, grew about 48, and demand set at 45. Now, those figures are slightly concerning because we are at the end of August and they should be building cover. Anyway, I say that kind of tongue in cheek because Munster Leinster are so far off that it's getting deeply worrying. But, the farms that have reasonable growth rate in the north and northwest are behind target in terms of where they want to be in terms of building cover. So, there are challenges there. But I suppose for growth to pick up in the south, the southeast and the northeast, where most of the soil moisture deficits are in the extremes, the rainfall is required. Now, there is a level of rainfall predicted to come at different amounts next week. Listen to Maher, right? So I hope that they come true in that. I suppose the standout figures for rainfall next week are Cork at 38 millimetres, which is about an inch and a half, and Waterford at about 30 millimetres, which is just over an inch. There's a weak half inch or 10 to 12 millimetres forecast to fall in the southeast corner and the Midlands. While it's not enough to get anywhere near getting over the soil moisture deficit, when you look back at previous times, even last year in 2018, when the rain came, growth picked up, but not a lot, but the rain came in time, and we're getting dangerously close to that not happening here now. So I will hope the rain will come next week and then hope it will continue. If I was to give an example of last year, rain started falling on 27th of August, which in many parts of the south and southeast. About 2 inches fell in the first 10 days, and there was a lot of recovery made in most places, not all, in terms of building grass. But the rain would need to start falling next week to address the large soil moisture deficit there. What I mean by large is beyond 60, 70, 80 millimetres of soil moisture deficit. So if you were to get 30 plus mils, that would put a reasonable hole in it. 10, 12 mils will require a lot more rainfall to follow on from that. So it's a case of waiting and seeing now, as of the 20th of August. Speaking of soil moisture deficits, I suppose they persist quite strongly in the south, the east, and the Midlands. Some farmers are no longer able to keep grass in the diet. That wouldn't surprise me in the likes of Carlow, Wicklow, parts of Wexford, Kilkenny, Waterford, yeah. If you had a growth rate close to the 20s, that would allow you to have some level of grass in the diet to be all right, to be fair. But I suppose this is all happening in the background of fodder being eaten that's needed for the winter. So again, if you haven't looked at what's available for the winter and done your numbers in terms of what's required and what's needed, you need to do so fairly fast to establish where you're at. We're going to suggest that you'd need at least 5 months, and we have concerns of farms that have less than that, unless they have a particularly long grazing season and are very skilled at grazing. But, you know, where's the deficit then? Kind of a fodder reserve would need to be built up, or reduce the amount of stock going into winter, or a bit of both. So there's reluctance to, deal with some of those things, particularly about reducing demand on farms, right? But and getting rid of cows or getting rid of surplus animals, I suppose high cell count cows, culls, lame cows, the empties, they all have a role to play here in reducing demand. For the record, on the 1st of September to the 1st of April, one cow will eat 10 bales of silage, just to keep that in mind. So we'll keep going here. I suppose if you are going to buy fodder, the earlier you do this, the better, to be honest, right? But I suppose other options need to be considered, like, hay, straw to stretch silage, other bits and pieces like that. You know, Waynans can get different levels of ration as well, I suppose, and stuff like that. So all these things need to be considered, right? And a plan of action start to put in place. Right. In terms of fertilizer application, lots of questions about this, but every location in the country is different. Every farm is different. Every paddock within the farm is different. We know, like, for example, reseeds grow well. We know that high dry paddocks don't grow well. So, this comes down to growth rate really more than anything else. And I suppose the magic number is around 30 to 35 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per growth in the paddock. If the growth rate's anywhere around that or below that, most of its fertilizer needs will be met by the release of nitrogen from the soil when rainfall comes and that's available. Right. If the growth rate goes beyond that, then we can start looking at other numbers in terms of fertilizer. Right. Where the sward is green, the growth beyond 35, and fertilizer application can be spread. And that's certainly the case for Sligo, Mayo, Donegal, northwest corner. They need to get out their fertilizer, if not done so already. Certainly need 20 plus units at this stage coming into the last week of August to try and build grass going into the autumn. On the farms that are struggling with grass growth, the watery slurry is working best. There's a lot of slurry, we're informed, in a lot of tanks. If water or the collecting yards mixed with that, it will help get that spread. The reseeded paddocks and the fresh paddocks will give the best responses, right? So to keep that in mind, coming back to people who have good growth rates around the country, which is a low proportion, but they're still there. The average farm cover for the Connacht Ulster region was just under 700. They need to target 900. Basically, that means they need to build about 200 of cover in the next 10 to 12 days. If you do the numbers on that, they have to grow 20 more than what they are eating in terms of demand, right? So I suppose that needs to be kept in mind. And I suppose probably, for a very simplistic approach, but very, very important, to target a 30-day rotation by the 1st of September. What I mean by 30 rotation now, that's not looking back. That means if you have 30 hectares, you graze 1 hectare a day or 7 hectares a week. Or if you have, 90 acres, that's 3 acres a day, or 21 acres a week. That's what that means. So the targets are about 900 recover, but more specifically, I suppose, about 300 or a bit with it in terms of kilograms of dry matter per livestock unit. So they're kind of the numbers for those who are growing well. The rest of us will have to wait and see what the rainfall brings in terms of growth and alleviation of the soil moisture deficit. So our feature farm this week, again, is a Teagasc farm. Very hard to ask farmers at the moment to do this farmer feature when things are so difficult in most parts of the country. So it's a dairy calf to beef operation in Grange in County Meath, and in fairness to Jamie O'Driscoll, thanks for doing this. So Meath is struggling with soil moisture deficits and growth as well. The average farm cover in that system, it's dairy calf to beef, so Friesians, Angus's, Herefords, some Continentals as well, calves, but brought to beef. Right, the average farm cover was 400. That won't surprise anybody. The growth was 17, as I've outlined earlier. Demand is set now at 14. So it's basically happened in this farm. The calves are grazing, they're getting 1.5 kg of the ration, and all their animals are housed. The reseeds are doing well from 25-26. They're growing the most at 30 kilograms of dry matter per hectare a day, which is about double the average on the farm. No surprises there. 85% of the winter fodder is saved at this stage, but they are eating into that. The bullocks were started on silage on 17th of July, were housed on the 1st of August, and now we're on a full finishing diet of about 7 kilograms of silage dry matter per day and 5 kilos of meal to finish them off. And the first bullocks will be fit within about 60 days, which, basically puts you into late October, 1st November, right? So that's where they're at, and they haven't spread fertilizer since the open day, which is back in late June, early July. So not a good story either, but a planned action is now in process on that farm, and I suppose that's the message we'd take from that for where things are at. Again, like all the rest of us, they're awaiting rainfall. Quick thoughts on the reseeds. There are fields who are sprayed off for reseeding and will have to reseed it with rainfall coming next week, hopefully to all parts of the country. I hope I'm right in saying that. It may give an opportunity to get moving on this. There are other people asking, should they reseed this autumn? It's very, very simple. If you're short of grass, short of winter feed, reseeding 10 acres will cost you about €6,000. So that has an impact on cash flow. It's very hard for me to justify, going off spraying off a paddock this stage and going reseeding, certainly on the milking platform. I could debate on the silage ground, but we're getting very, very late. But one thing I would be very nervous about is, if the field is not ready, is to go spraying it next week, wait for 2 weeks for the spray to try and get into the docks and down into root, which takes a minimum of 2 weeks at standard growth rate. It's just running too late for my liking, to be honest, and will cost you a nice bit of money. As I said, 10 acres cost $6,000. Would buy a lot of feed. So, those considerations have to be taken into account for the fields that are spread off. Yeah, we have to get working on that fairly quickly. On the other point is, there's, as I said, rain promised next week to all parts of the country. I hope that happens. This should bring on the existing reseeds. We get lots of queries, lots of questions about reseeds, where they're at. Are they dead? Is this little plant going to come? We know from 18, given half a chance, that a lot of these, I would say 90% of them, given a level of rainfall, will come just fine. We just need to wait and bear with them, right? The weed populations are becoming a bit of a concern. I don't deny that. The likes of red shank and fat hen are having a field day in the drought conditions. If they're in patches, that's not too bad. That can be handled. If they're all across the field, that's a different story and would need to be dealt with. We had this episode last year as well, where variable germination, I would go in and graze it. Don't mind about the small plants. The animals will walk over these, won't touch them. They'll grow fine. And then we maybe look at spraying towards the end of September at this stage. Now, as we move further into the year, the opportunities for spraying get more difficult because the day length is shorter. Sometimes we can get wind. There's moisture comes early in the evening and it's delayed in the morning with dew and all. So the opportunities become tricky. I don't deny that, but there are strategies there that we can deal with. I'll have to do a little video on this for the sake of the farmers as well and see where we're at. So I'll try and do that. So anyway, that's my bit for this week. All hoping the rain will come next week. If you'd like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc public website, and the link to this newsletter is also available in the description of this podcast. We'd like to thank those who support the Grass10 campaign: AIB, Grass and Agro, Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, FBD and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and we'll talk to you all next week when we hope we have rain.